dating in midlife can be challenging. Dating online can be even more challenging because we're meeting total strangers and it's easy to prejudge the men we meet. And the reason we prejudge is to save us time, save us heartache. But the problem is that having those prejudgments actually makes dating harder. We take the conclusion from maybe our past relationship that we've had where, let's say, we dated a lawyer and the lawyer was not a nice person. And so we make an assumption, and maybe we date two lawyers, and we make an assumption that lawyers are not kind people. Or I dated a bunch of psychologists and they were very much in their head and not in their heart. So I could easily say, I will never date another psychologist because they are all in their head and not in their heart. And so we eliminate so many possible good matches when we paint men with a broad brush. So if you hear yourself saying things like, all men who are blank or must be blank, I want you to just pause and listen to yourself. Listen to the assumption you're making and ask yourself if it's really true. We don't know who all men are, right? And we also don't want to be treated that way. We don't want some guy who's dated a woman who was a brunette and found her to be something that, what if he had an assumption that all brunettes are a certain thing, or all women who work in your profession are a certain way, or who live in your town, or who have your body type, or who get divorced? I mean, years ago, I had a friend who was on a singles weekend, and this guy said to her, are you the leaver or the one who was asked to leave? I forgot what he used, the exact words. But it was like, if you were the person who initiated the divorce, he didn't want to talk to you because he was left. It was you were the lever or the left. And how can we make such a broad conclusion about somebody who leaves or somebody who, was left? Because divorce is a multifaceted thing. It's not just one thing, right? Just the same as we are multifaceted. And so we want to see men as the multifaceted people they are. And we want to find out more before we make a conclusion they are whoever we think they are. So here are 5 assumptions to stop making while you're trying to find your partner. The first assumption is don't assume that you're not his type or he's not yours. I see this so often where you look at a profile and he says he's looking for a woman who's really active or has a certain body type, and you make an assumption that because he wrote that, he will not be open to meeting you. Well, we don't know. We don't know if he wrote that because it's wishful thinking and he really doesn't care. And if he met you, he might fall in love with you, with your body type and your level of activity. And the same thing the other way around. Don't assume that he's not your type because he hasn't written too much in a profile, or maybe he has a few typos. Maybe his pictures aren't great. That is not the full picture. So don't assume you're not his type or he's not yours until you find out. And then you can make a decision based on fact and not fiction. Number 2, don't assume that if he is separated, he is not emotionally available. Now, it is true that many men who are separated are not ready to date yet, but some men who are separated have been separated for a long time. Some men who are separated have not been in love with their wives for many, many years and have already been through therapy and are really emotionally available. We don't know until we know. So if he says he's separated, you can get curious. Many, many women I know who are in fantastic relationships, and some are even married or engaged, have met while either he was separated or she was separated or both were separated, and it worked. So don't make a broad assumption that if he's separated, he's not available. Find out. And the same thing goes with if he's widowed. If he's widowed, it doesn't necessarily mean he is available. It doesn't also necessarily mean that he's not available. Like, some men who are widowed are never ready to date again. Some say they are and they're not. Some are not and it's just, there's so many ways to look at this. Number three, don't assume if he is much older or younger, it means you're not compatible. I see so many women saying, oh, well, he's, 10 years younger than I am. He's probably not mature enough. Or he's 10 years older than I am. He's probably not able to keep up with me. Or he's going to get sick. Or anything. Like, we don't know until we know. So you're going to hear me say this many times, but get curious, find out. In the last week, had two men reach out to me who were 47 and 50. Easy to imagine that those men were completely incompatible, but I got on a call with them. I wanted to know what we do have in common and whether we don't have anything in common because of our age. Age should not mean anything until it does. I mean, if a guy was 20 and you were 60, you might have a big age gap there. But again, there have been successful couples with a big age gap. So open up your net and get curious about these men. Number four, don't assume that when you are physically attracted, it means that you are compatible. Attraction doesn't equal compatibility, but we often, when we get physically involved, we think we're compatible when we aren't. So if you're attracted, that's great, but don't assume compatibility. Learn compatibility. Learn whether you are or you are not. And number five, don't assume that you have similar relationship goals. We often have very different goals when we're out there dating. And if we don't ask questions, then we don't know if the person is aligned with what we want and what we're looking for. And even after you ask questions, if you don't see consistent effort, you can have a man say whatever he wants. And if he's not showing you that he means what he says, then it doesn't matter what he says. So if you don't have similar relationship goals, it's not going to work out. So don't go in assuming that just because he says he's really interested in you, that he's also not dating other people, that he's also off the dating sites. We've had assumptions in our Facebook group about that this week when somebody was exclusive but still on the dating site. So that has to be said. Anytime you make an assumption, you are putting yourself at risk for getting it wrong, for eliminating good men, for eliminating men who are not right for you. So what do we do instead? Get curious, ask questions. If there's a big red flag, then that person's not for you. But if it's an assumption that you're making, I want you to stop and look at those assumptions so you can eliminate them and open up the dating pool so that you can find your last first date. And if you're looking for a dating coach and you would like to know how to find your last first date and how to stop making these assumptions, I invite you to join me for a breakthrough session. Just go to lastfirstdate.com/breakthrough. We'll get on a call for half an hour and we will learn what it is that is blocking you from having the love you want.